With 20 million copies sold worldwide, only 3% of players have ever managed to beat Honor Mode. And as one of those players, and with over 600 hours in this game, today I will explain how you get your own golden dice by explaining the hardest parts of Honor Mode, the early game. I will go over every mandatory fight in Act 1 with tips to maximize your chances for success. This example Honor Mode run will be with minimal preparation, which means that as long as you're spending time enjoying the game, you will most likely be better equipped, more prepared, and higher level as well. That means that if I can scrap by, like so, then you should have an even easier time taking down the fights if you take the tips from this video. If you like this content and want more, then like and comment so I can continue this campaign, and I can go ahead and also explain the mechanics of the fights in Act 1.5, 2, and 3 as well. So for this first fight with the imps, there's actually not much to say because, yeah, you basically just keep throwing your skills at them and they have very low AC, which means they're very easy to hit. So it's very unlikely that you will wipe in this fight. So yeah, that's basically it. Just use all your special skills that do damage and you should be fine for this fight. Now for the Helm Transponder fight, the main thing that you can use to push your advantage here is that there is a dippable surface on the right side when you begin the battle, which means that if you can go ahead and just dip your weapons, specifically your arrows, before you start the fight, then you'll have an average of +2 damage throughout the entire fight, which will maximize your chances of killing the enemy and going through as fast as you can. So this fight is the one that actually ends up wiping a lot of people that are starting their first Honor Mode runs, which is the Intellect Devourers. So here, as you can see, I'm approaching the sight line of the Intellect Devourers while crouching and hiding. But at the same time, if I just simply walk up to them, if I unhide and walk up, then they will actually run away the first time that I encounter them. But once they are in this position that's next to that purple tank, then if you approach their sight line again and you are not hiding, then you will start to fight, and they are pretty dangerous because they can go ahead and one-shot you, and they do have a ranged attack for that. So usually, as you can see here, you usually want to go ahead and go up to high ground that's on the right side. But at the same time, you don't actually have to start this fight with just yourself and Shadowheart, or if you didn't pick up Shadowheart, then just by yourself. You don't have to actually start this fight. You can actually go around, so you can actually go to this cliff that's on the right side as well, a little bit back, and with just a couple of short jumps, you can actually make it all the way up to the top here. And then once you make it to the top, then you can actually go ahead and start gathering all of your teammates. So for example, I can see down here, so this is the cliff that I jumped up. And once I walk around, then I can go ahead and see the portal here, which means that I can go ahead and pick up Gale. And Gale is really good because he adds guaranteed firepower for this upcoming fight because he is a wizard, which means he gets magic missiles, which never misses. And also it gives experience, which is why I was able to go to level 2 here. And now I can go ahead and make my way around all the way here. And in here I will actually see a dying Mind Flayer who has a little bit of HP. And of course you can go ahead and approach it, but that will actually require a wisdom check, which means that if you just go ahead and use any ranged attack from far away, then you'll be able to kill it immediately and you won't have a chance to potentially end your run. Because if you do miss that wisdom check, then you actually will get eaten by the Mind Flayer, which means that you actually will die, and then your teammates, whichever ones you have, will need to fight a Mind Flayer that has near full health and full power, which basically means you will wipe. Now we went ahead and picked up all 4 parties, so now we are a full party of 4. So then after leveling up from gaining the experience of picking up all these companions, then you should be at level 2, and you can go ahead and pick up shield, which is insanely good because it only activates when you're about to get hit, which means you can negate damage guaranteed. And you can also pick up magic missiles, along with a bunch of other things that your companions will grow into. But yeah, so from here, of course, you can go all the way around and go back to where you came from to get that high ground on the right side. Like, that is possible, but also it is a lot of work. So if you want to do that, that's totally okay. But I'm just going to go ahead and start the fight here. And now that it is effectively a 3v4, so then even if I don't have the high ground, I still have enough firepower with a lot of the magic missiles and the fact that I can focus all of my firepower into one enemy at a time, which means that when all 4 of your characters are collapsing into one Intellect Devourer at a time, then you should be able to take it down relatively easily. And also now that you're level 2, you won't get one shot by these Intellect Devourers. Now, in Honor mode, one of the most notable things is that the enemies are just simply harder to hit because they have an increase in their armor class, which basically just means that there's a negative 10% chance that you will hit them. But to counteract this, I highly recommend using Bless, which basically adds a 1d4, which is just a very complicated way to say that on average you will get a 10% increase chance to hit them. Now, in Honor mode, it is all about trying to minimize chances, which means that you want to go ahead and try to rely on things that are for sure as much as you can. So for example, in here, because the Intellect Devourers are relatively low health, I can actually use Gale to cast Sleep, because Sleep lands 100% of the time. There is no way to save from it, which means that you can effectively take out the enemies from the battle for 2 turns, which is huge when you can turn basically a 2v4 into a 1v4 for effectively 2 rounds. Okay, so this isn't really a mandatory fight, but I really like Lae'zel, so I'm gonna cover this one. It really helps to have a character face that is really good at charisma checks, specifically persuasion, intimidation, and deception, because if you're able to yap hard enough, basically you can go ahead and skip fights and get all the experience anyways. So that's why I went with Sorcerer here, but there are other classes that are also very proficient in charisma. So usually for the face, you want to go ahead and focus on this, because then you can go ahead and just cheat yourself out of a lot of fights for free experience. So that's very recommended. Now to the Grove Gate fight. So this fight isn't actually too bad, because while the goblins themselves are relatively high level, you basically just need to approach from the top and you'll be fine. Because if you are standing on a platform that's sufficiently higher than your opponents, then you will also get +2 to your attack rolls, which is also just another complicated way of saying you have another +10% to your accuracy. So as long as you start from the top here, then you'll just have these 2 goblins to deal with, which you can focus down on your own. And as I said before, while the enemies themselves, there's a decent amount, and they are also usually higher level than you, but they'll be busy actually fighting off the other NPCs, so you actually don't have to worry about them. And as you'll see from the gameplay here, I actually don't use any of the special skills that you usually need, like, for example, like Sleep or Magic Missiles. You can actually totally get through this entire fight without even using any of the spell slots and just firing away cantrips such as Firebolt from a high distance, which gives you higher accuracy. Now that we've entered the grove, we're going to go ahead and start by freeing Sazza, because if we do, then we'll be able to basically walk straight into the goblin camp with her escorting us. So this can turn into a fight, but luckily, if you follow the previous steps and you have a very good yapper on your team, then you can pass all those persuasion checks, which means this should not turn into a fight. And then after that, you can just go ahead and free Sazza. And a lot of people try to walk her out of the grove directly, but there's actually a cave right behind Sazza's prison. So then you can actually leave her right out here, and then you can actually enter this passage. But the problem with this passage is that there are statues that basically make it so that it attacks you whenever it enters its vision. So then I'm going to go ahead and use a Mage Hand, which comes with Lae'zel's Githyanki race. And then I can go ahead and disable both of the buttons, which make it so that if we walk up, then the statue won't attack us. Now, I left Sazza outside for this because if you bring in Sazza into the passage, then if you try to hide or anything like that, because technically she's not considered part of your team, so then you'll enter her line of sight and then you won't actually be able to hide. Now, the underground passage actually has the other entrance that is right outside of the grove a little bit to the left. So then I'm going to enter through the other side because this will actually give you high ground. And as we covered before, when you have high ground, you'll have plus 10% to accuracy. And you'll also be able to take out the enemy that's on high ground, which means everyone else will be on the lower platforms, which basically means that as long as you're just flinging cantrips or arrows from that high ground, you'll be able to land it pretty easily, considering that you'll also be able to apply Bless as well. Yeah, so here I was able to immediately use magic missiles to take out the top person, and then after that, now I'm just casually throwing arrows down from the high ground, and it minimizes the risk quite a bit, and throwing in a little bit of magic missiles here and there. One other thing that you can use to apply to your advantage is that when you do have the high ground on your opponents, then as you kind of saw here, I went ahead and took out all the ranged archers first, because all the melee fighters, the ones that are holding the great axes and the swords, clearly they're going to have to walk all the way up to you to actually fight, which this person did not have the chance to do. So then as long as you take out the archers first, you'll basically be safe almost the entire time. Now that I went from the other side to gain the high ground and I was able to defeat them, now I can go ahead and grab Sazza and I can come down here, and yeah, I can just walk straight through all the way out into the cave and I will be good. Now, one other thing to note here is that there is a lot of oil barrels here, so be careful not to trigger the trap, but yeah, you can go ahead and pick up all these flammable barrels because these will be very, very, very useful for the upcoming mandatory boss fights. There you go, and now Sazza is free. Now, when you're about to enter the Blighted Village or the Goblin ransacked village here, they will naturally have high ground on you because they'll be on the rooftop waiting for you to go ahead and attack. But as you can see here, with Shadowheart being in the trickery domain, you can actually just go ahead and use Disguise Self to disguise her as a drow and then just walk up through the front. Because basically goblins have a subservient relationship with drow. You can also go ahead and talk to, what's his name, Fezerk here. And yeah, he's a goblin as well, which means that as long as you're leading with Shadowheart, who is disguised as a drow, then a lot of the dialogue checks will be a lot easier. Yeah, so you can just yap your way through it as long as you're a drow, so you can just disguise self, and there you go. Now for the entrance of the goblin camp itself, if we went ahead and saved Sazza as before, then even though there are goblins here with the high ground, Sazza will just go ahead and take you through, which means you can just go ahead and approach. Now, if we are going to go ahead and take down the Goblin King, then that's going to turn all the goblins against us. So if you want, you can go ahead and take the high ground and take them out here, but I will go ahead and do that later. Now, we brought Sazza, which means that we can just go ahead and walk through this entire place all the way to the Heart of the Absolute, but it seems like Gale is hungry, so we're just going to feed him first. And yeah, as we can see here, we can just walk into the Goblin camp and everybody is neutral, at least non-hostile. Okay, so now after letting Shadowheart yap a little bit, now Sazza will go ahead and take us through here. And yeah, there you go, and she's just gonna let us straight through all the way to the camp. And now we're gonna deal with Priestess Gut. Of course, you can go ahead and just let her brand you here because it actually helps with a lot of the other future gameplay where you can just avoid fights. But yeah, so after you talk to her for a little bit, she'll take you to this remote room where she will be completely alone. Now, this part is a little bit tricky, and I did mess up a little bit here on the honor run. So if she does get a turn when entering into a fight with you, she will call out for help, which means everyone in the Shattered Sanctum will turn hostile, which is actually what happened here because I didn't put the silence far away or her in the center of it, and I also didn't restrain any of her movements, but you can go ahead and do that. If you do successfully kill her inside the silent cube, then of course you will not be able to call out for help, which means that you will be able to have the entire sanctum still be non-hostile towards you, which is better. But as with any honor mode run, not everything goes to plan, so then she's able to call her allies here, which is actually a good opportunity to talk about what happens when you are completely outnumbered, as in this case. Because I didn't do any preparation, so I'm actually quite underleveled here. So when things don't go to plan such as this, then usually you want to go ahead and flee combat. So then in this case, one thing that you can do is once you take out the priestess, then she will have a key to her private room. So then you can go ahead and loot the key off of her body, and then because all party members will have access to this key as long as one party member is holding it, then I can go ahead and use this key to go ahead and escape into her room, which is considered a different area. So as you can see here, so then now Lae'zel has successfully escaped the battle. Yeah, and this is totally okay. This happens a lot in honor mode. Sometimes the battle just doesn't go to plan, and then you want to go ahead and flee. Of course, when you are in this situation, then you want to go ahead and pick up some invisibility potions because that will make it extremely easy for at least one of the party members to go ahead and escape, which means you'll be able to resurrect the rest of your party using withers. But in this case, this is a very minimal preparation run, so then you'll be a lot more equipped than I am. But since I don't have an invisibility potion here, I can just go ahead and escape to the private room of Priestess Gut, which will go ahead and disengage the battle with the rest of the goblins. And there I am, and now everyone is successfully back and escaped. Now, we have successfully taken down one out of the 3 goblin leaders, so then we want to go ahead and take out the other 2 for the end of this video, but before that we can go ahead and clear the Shattered Sanctum. Now, one thing to note is that even if everyone in the Shattered Sanctum is hostile, as is the case right now, that actually doesn't apply to the entire goblin camp. So as you can see, I'm still walking around outside and it's totally fine, but the inside is going to be hostile because Priestess Gut was able to call out for help earlier in that fight. But luckily there is another thing we can do here to gain a huge advantage when clearing out the Sanctum, which is that you can go ahead and enter through a secret passage that gives you very, very high ground. Now, of course, you can actually skip this fight if you cast Silence next to the wall, but you can also just go ahead and start the fight. As you can see, there were some wine barrels next to the goblins, which means that you can go ahead and ignite those with fire. That way you can instantly almost take out 2 goblins, and then you'll be stuck here with a 3v4, which means you'll be able to fight them. One important thing to note here is that there is a ranger, and when a ranger summons a warg, then the warg obviously is going to have a lot of health and is able to hit really hard. So you want to go ahead and focus on taking out that archer / ranger, because once you're able to take out the ranger themselves, then the warg will disappear, which means you won't have to spend any resources taking down the warg unless you have to. Now, after clearing the fight here, you can actually see there's this wall, and I brought Will just for this purpose because his Eldritch Blast is able to get through the walls really, really well. And now that we went through the walls, we're going to go grab our good old reliable Gale, which is our magic missile machine, which has a 100% accuracy, which will add guaranteed fire power to this fight. Now, as you can see here, now we are on the roof of the Shattered Sanctum, which means that you'll be able to have very, very high ground on your enemies, which gives you that plus 10% accuracy to all your attacks. And now you can see there is a ladder on the right side of the screen here. So then that's going to be the main ladder that's going to give your enemies access to you if possible. So you want to go ahead and put your close range fighter, your marshals, all those frontline fighters, at least one of them next to the ladder. That way if they do finish climbing up, then you can go ahead and attack them from there. But yeah, as you can see here, now because we are so high up, then we can actually go ahead and attack all of them with increased accuracy, and they will attack us with lower accuracy. And some of the melee classes cannot even attack us. That's just like they need to climb up to do so. So even if you are significantly outnumbered here, as long as you're just casually throwing down your cantrips and your arrows and your spells, then you'll be at a huge advantage, and the chance of you wiping is very, very, very low. Now, one thing to note here is that we did kill Priestess Gut before doing this, because Priestess Gut actually is able to pull players off of the ledge, which means that you'll actually take huge fall damage, and potentially a character might die just from falling off the ledge. But other than Priestess Gut, no one else has the ability to do this. So once Priestess Gut is dead, then you can go ahead and engage this high elevation fight, which means that you'll comfortably be able to take out everyone and they won't even be able to reach you at all, which means it completely minimizes the chances of you wiping. And as you can see here, there are some people that are slowly approaching the ladder but not fast enough. But as they approach the ladder, then you can just go ahead and focus on those specific characters and you'll be completely safe. Now, one other important thing to note here is that you don't want to go ahead and approach Minthara too early, because the moment you finish talking to Minthara, then they will go ahead and start gathering troops to go ahead and assault the grove, and we don't want that. We want to go ahead and just resolve everything here. So then before all of that comes into play, you can just go ahead and clear out the Goblin camp first. Now, after you clear out the Sanctum to a relatively good amount, of course, without approaching Minthara, because that's going to go ahead and trigger the invasion, which is not what we want, so we're gonna go ahead and delay approaching Minthara until later on. But of course, back to this, you actually have access to a lot of smoke powder and fire wine and oil barrels, and you want to go ahead and pick all of these up because you're going to want to use them for the mandatory fight that's going to come up in Act 2, and a lot of these barrels will make that fight a complete easy breeze. Now, for fighting Minthara as well as the Goblin King Dror Ragzlin, you are going to most likely be under their current level, unless you did a lot of exploring and got a lot of experience that way, but this is a relatively minimum playthrough. So then we are going to need some help. Luckily, we do have that option available to us in the form of Halsin, the druid. Now, to rescue Halsin, we're going to actually need to fight the goblins here in the ward pens, which is completely fine. These guys are not too strong or anything. But one of the things to note here is that there is another ranger, another beast master, who can go ahead and summon a spider. So then we're going to actually want to place all of our party members next to that Beastmaster. That way when the fight starts, as we can see here, we have 3 members that are next to the Beastmaster ready to go. That way we can take him out first. Because once we take him out, then the spider will magically disappear and then we won't have to worry about it anymore. Of course, there are the tiny little goblins like the 1, 2, and 3 that are going to try to escape and call for help. And they are relatively easy to defeat, so you can take them out if you have the leisure to do so. But at this point, you should have already cleared out a lot of the Shattered Sanctum, which means that even if they do call for help, of course, it's not going to be that big of a deal. But yeah, of course, you do want to still take out those little guys before they can call for help. That way, this fight is as easy as possible. And as you can see there, Lae'zel was able to successfully take out the Beastmaster, which means that now there is no more spider, and then now the numbers are significantly in your favor. And now we're doing the cleanup here, and one other thing you can use to push your advantage, similar to the Helm fight, is that there are two braziers that you can actually light up at any time, and then these are dimmable surfaces as well, which means that as long as you are standing at the top, then you can go ahead and just dip all your arrows and then just casually fire with those extra firepower, and then Halsin will mostly just do all the damage for you. And you can just go ahead and stand at the top of the stairs and just go ahead and support him with a little bit of firepower. Yeah. And only a couple things can make this fight roll out of your control, which is basically if you have the Beastmaster and you're not focusing him and you weren't properly positioned to take him out first, then that might cause a little bit of a problem. But if you do place your party members ready to go for that specific fight, then you should be fine. Now, one thing to note that Halsin will also notify you here is that if you do have Halsin with you and you are spotted by the other goblins, then they will automatically turn hostile, which doesn't really matter for this case because it's the entire sanctum is already hostile towards us. But that is something to note, is that if they are non-hostile and you want to get the jump on them, you don't want to bring Halsin, or you want to bring him later on in the fight. Now, if you do have Halsin, which is a great help for this fight, then you want to try to engage at the bottom like so. But I did make a little bit of mistake here, which is that I did enter with the rest of my teammates a little bit too early. I should have waited until Minthara and the rest of them are focused on Halsin before I introduce the rest of them to the fight. So as you can see here, there is a little bit of a ladder that's next to where Minthara and Sazza are. So then you can have your teammates ready to go here. That way they can climb up the ladder and then have the high ground on everyone. Now, because I did introduce the rest of my teammates a bit too early into the fight, so then Minthara was not too focused on Halsin before I entered with everyone. So then because of that, Minthara is focused on gaining the high ground back, which is why she's also climbing up the ladder and fighting with me there, which is not ideal, because ideally you want to go ahead and monopolize the high ground. That way you have that direct plus 10% accuracy while everyone else coming up towards you has that negative 10% accuracy. But yeah, unfortunately, that is not the case here because I brought them in a little bit too early. I should have waited until Minthara is focused on Halsin because Halsin has like a million HP and a lot of health, so then you don't have to worry about Halsin dying. That's really not an issue. But either way, I mean, this is an honor mode run, and as you would expect, not everything goes to plan, but it's all about minimizing risk and trying to rely on sure things and pushing for advantages as much as you can, as we are doing here with the high ground. So then the rest of the goblins are stuck at the bottom, which means that we're able to go ahead and fight on even footing. One other thing about this fight that is of note is that there is the Scrying Eye, and the Scrying Eye is very, very hard to take down in Honor Mode slash Tactician because not only is it resistant to basically every damage, it also has all incoming damage reduced by 8, which basically means that you have to hit at least 16 because that 16 damage will be reduced to 8, and then that basically 8 damage will be reduced back to 0. So then you're going to need to hit extremely hard unless you have thunder damage, of course, which is why we have Gale carrying Thunder Wave, but also you can have other forms such as Chromatic Orb. So you always want to have some level of thunder damage going into fights where you know that there's going to be a Scrying Eye, because other than that, especially at this level, at this stage of the game, there's not much that you can actually do to destroy it because it's almost invulnerable because it reduces every damage by half and then reduces it again by 8. Yeah, so as you can see here, there's that Thunder Wave, and then it immediately destroys it in one go, which would be very, very difficult if I didn't have that source of thunder damage. Now that basically most of the Sanctum is cleared out, we want to go ahead and finish this up. And one thing to note here is that because Priestess Gut was able to call for help earlier, so then the entire Sanctum is hostile, including those people that we entered at the gate earlier. So usually you would want to go up to the sides and climb up the ladder so that you have high ground and advantage against these guys. But at the same time, these guys are relatively low level, and there aren't too many of them, so the chance of you wiping here is very, very low. And also you can have Halsin with you for these fights, which means that Halsin is basically a beast unto himself, so then he can just go ahead and do most of the damage while you stand back and shoot down with arrows. And yeah, as you can see here, we're just using some ranged attacks, some cantrips, and we're using Bless as Bless increases our accuracy. And yeah, this should be a relatively breeze of a fight because they can't do too much damage and they're pretty low health, so you can whittle them down, it's not a big deal. Now, the thing that I did want to show you is that, as you can see, it's a bloodbath here in the Sanctum, but even though that is the case, if we just go ahead and walk right outside, well, okay, we have to leave Halsin back because Halsin's only allowed in the Sanctum here at this point of the story. But yeah, as you can see, the Ogre is non-hostile. So inside is a bloodbath, and everybody is super chill, everybody's non-hostile and neutral. So yeah, even if you accidentally anger the Sanctum, you will not actually anger everyone else in the Goblin camp, which is cool. But if you do kill the Goblin King, that will turn everybody hostile, which is why we're going to go ahead and save that for last. So we're going to clean up all the goblins first. Now, when clearing out the Goblin camp, there are a couple places you can start, but one place that I would recommend is the drunkards on the right side over here, because as you'll see later on, if you were to go ahead and trigger one of the other fights, then they can beat the war drum, which will attract these three, and then these three will be added on top of the encounter, which is not what we want. We want to try to minimize our chances for a wipe. So one other thing that you can see here is that you can also go ahead and grab the high ground that's on the right side of the cliff here, and you can go ahead and just ignite all the oil barrels and destroy them immediately like so, but I would probably recommend against that because while that is a short-term gain, you can actually go ahead and save these barrels for a mandatory boss fight later on, which will be a lot more helpful. And these guys are only 3 relatively low-level goblins, so it should not be too much of a problem. Now, after you are done clearing these guys out, as we talked about before, you can just go ahead and pick up these barrels, because these will be useful for the mandatory fights in the future, and you can just go ahead and loot around a little bit as well. And once you're done with that, then you can go ahead and start the Goblin entrance fight that we talked about earlier. So you can go ahead onto the right here where you have a high ground where the scout is, and then you can go ahead and trigger the fight by killing the scout first. Now, this position is really, really good because once you clear that one scout, then your entire team can stay up here completely safe from the wargs because the wargs have no way of actually climbing up the ladder, and then you can go ahead and have high ground while the goblins here will have low ground against you. Now, as you can see, there is a little war drum over there, but that's not going to matter because we went ahead and destroyed the 3 drunkards first before starting this fight. Now, as we discussed before, because you are grabbing this very advantageous high ground, you want to just go ahead and focus on the ranged characters if you can, because all of the melee characters will not be able to attack you until they get to you. And in a case like this, where the melee character is going off to the side, and it is not able to be woken up by anyone else who is able to push them, then you can literally just put him to sleep, and then he'll be out of combat for 2 turns while you casually take down all the wargs at your time's leisure. Now we will get into the meat of the biggest fights in the Goblin camp. So you can go ahead and use the vines to climb up this place where we entered through the Shattered Sanctum earlier, and you'll see that this is actually really good ground because when you see those bumps along the roof there, those actually provide cover where if you are a relative distance away, then it actually makes it very difficult to hit you with a ranged attack as long as you are kind of behind those bumps a little bit. While it's not complete protection, because sometimes if someone is throwing like a javelin at you, then because it has an arc, it can go over. But most of the ranged attacks will not have the angle that is appropriate to shoot, which means that as long as you stay behind those little bumps, most of the time you will be fine. Now, I do like to start the fight around here because one thing is that there are a bunch of goblin holes that are on the ground, which the goblins will use to try to climb up and get to you, which means that instead of this becoming a 20v4, which it usually would be, this actually ends up becoming more like a game of whack-a-mole, where as they come up through the holes, then you can just go ahead and focus fire on them one by one. And also, because you have a pretty good idea of where they might be coming from, you can also go ahead and block these holes with Cloud of Daggers, which deals an average of 10 damage, which means that a lot of these goblins in honor mode, once they come out and they're hit with the unavoidable damage of Cloud of Daggers, then they'll basically already be more than half dead, which means that you can focus them down relatively easily. Now, as you saw there, because I'm actually not far enough away from the ledge, so the orc is able to throw stones at me, so I'll go ahead and adjust for that in a little bit. But at the same time, as you can see, if I just throw 2 Cloud of Daggers where I know that the goblins are likely going to spawn, then this is going to make the fight a lot easier, because everyone's going to basically be half dead the moment they pop up. Yeah, so that's basically it. Just stay relatively far away from the ledge and have those Cloud of Daggers ready for the holes. That way, when they start popping up, then you know where to put them. And yeah, and then you should be able to fight these guys pretty easily as they come up one by one. Now, there are a couple other things you can do to really minimize your chances for wiping in this fight, such as poisoning their alcohol so that a lot of them will die. But this is showing that you can comfortably clear the fight with minimal damage even if you don't do that. But yeah, if you want to do that, that's totally cool, because then you can minimize your chances a little bit further by preparing a bit more. Now, once you clear out basically all the goblins, then you can go ahead and also take out the orc and the bugbear at your leisure here as well. So you have the high ground, so most of the time the bugbear will not be able to figure out how to come up, and also the orc just has no way to come up, which means you'll be pretty safe as long as you shoot and then you just move back a little bit once you're done, and then you just kind of do this with all the characters. Yeah, so as you can see here, the orc, we're just kind of poking at it, and then after that we're backing away, and then they cannot attack. And it seems like the bugbear was able to figure out how to go up here, so we're going to need to focus him down a little bit as he's coming up, but he's also not super strong, so the chances of you wiping is very unlikely. Yeah, and as you can see, the orc has huge HP and also in melee is able to hit really hard, so that is going to be a little bit of a problem if you were to be fighting on even footing. But here, he can't do anything. He just can't even attack you. He has no way to get up to you, so then all he can do is wait while you rain down cantrips and arrows on them. Yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead and fast forward until I get to this point where, yeah, there's just the orc left, and you're just poking him down with fireballs or arrows or whatever you have, and then you're just kind of backing away, and he has absolutely no way to damage you. Yeah, and then once you get a couple more hits in, then you are basically done. And for the final fight of this video, so we're going to defeat the Goblin King, because once you defeat the Goblin King, then the entire conflict of Act 1 is resolved. So as you can kind of see me hovering, there's actually a ladder that's on the left side of the wall that you can actually hide up and sneak up behind. But I accidentally get caught here, which means that I have to start the fight without going up to high ground. And, well, that's honor mode. Sometimes you just gotta roll with the punches. But one thing to note here is that Ragzlin hits really hard. So you don't want your actual characters to be facing Ragzlin if possible. This is why you have Halsin, because Halsin has a lot of HP. So then he'll be able to tank a lot of the hits for you while you are doing the damage. So as you can see, now I have Lae'zel and able to go up the ladder there, and I can get that high ground advantage. And there's one other thing that is cool, which is that there's actually a wooden support that's only 1 health. So then if you just go ahead and shoot that down like I just did there, then it will immediately kill the person that's on it. Now this means that you can also kind of do silly things like use Minor Illusion to attract a lot more NPCs on there. That way you can go ahead and kill all of them at once, or possibly even Dror Ragzlin in 1 hit. But that is if you want to prepare a little bit more. But this is just to show you that even if you don't do that, you can still clear the fight. Now, basically all the other allies are not going to be that big of a deal, so the one thing you want to focus on is that every single character, including Halsin, want to go ahead and take down the Goblin King as fast as possible, because he's the only person that can possibly turn this fight out of control. Once you take him down, then the rest of the people, it's very unlikely that they will actually hurt you, so you want to just focus on taking down Ragzlin. Now in these cases, if they are not hostile towards you, which is not the case here, but if they are not hostile, you can also throw in a couple of barrels to explode them next to Ragzlin, that way you can take him down as fast as you can. Or you can go ahead and use the smoke powder bombs as I have done earlier here. Yeah, but either way, as you can see, I'm using some magic missiles and all of the skills available to try to take down Ragzlin as fast as possible. And as you can see, Halsin is taking the damage for me, which is good. And I'm also going to go ahead and use Shadowheart to create a weapon next to Ragzlin, just to put as much distance between Ragzlin, the actual threat of this fight, away from the team as much as possible. Yeah, and then once you do that, the cleanup part is relatively easy. Yeah, once Ragzlin's dead, then you're definitely not going to wipe in this fight, so you don't have to worry too much. So yeah, there you go. And once you finish off this last guy here, then you are officially done with the hardest part of Honor Mode Baldur's Gate 3, which is the early game, or Act 1. If you enjoyed this content and would like me to make more, such as Act 1.5, 2, and 3, then go ahead and like the video and let me know in the comments. That way I know that you guys like these and I can make more. And I'd love to make stuff like this full-time, so if you'd like that as well, then you can go ahead and support me on Patreon. I'll put the link down below as well.